compare. So we try to build in the best information, but it's never perfect. And again, our goals are, develop some reasonable projections and aim your rates in the right direction. As Lee was mentioning, you're not taking any action tonight, but for Prop 218, there's a 45-day waiting period between the time you mail out the notices and the time you can take action on them. So the thoughts were to get the notices out soon, so in your June meeting, when you adopt the budget, etc., you would have the statutory authority to be able to adopt the rates as well. So we developed the cash flow assumptions. Those are in that separate package of tables that I handed out. And we developed cash flows for both 32 and 40-hour work weeks. Some of the changes from the last version of cash flows I just wanted to point out. One is that growth was reduced from 80 new equivalent dwelling units per year to 25 new single-family equivalents per year. And I think you're on track to get about 20-25 this year. Obviously, growth has slowed down here as well as everywhere else. By the same token, that just doesn't hurt your revenues, it also reduces your expenses, because some of the capital projects that your engineers had slated for the next 10 years will really to deal with capacity issues in your sewer lines. And if the growth's not there, the capacity needs aren't going to be there as much either. So we try to keep those things in line with each other. What other key points here? Again, one other thing that changed is the sewer treatment costs we're anticipating are going to escalate at 6% a year. And that's about half of your operating expenses. They're entirely outside your control. On top of that, as with many regional treatment plants in this area, there are some upgrades that are needed to meet ongoing permit requirements, etc. And one of them is that the wastewater effluent is going to have to be treated with UV disinfection, which costs a bit to put in the system, and there's also some operating costs associated with that as well. Now, there's also going to be some operating savings. When they go to this new system, there are going to be less chemical needs. So the treatment plant folks were under the impression that their operating costs weren't going to change, it'd be a wash. But they're going to have to finance the capital needs. And we're talking a project that could be in the $25 to $30 million range. Luckily, you're only about 7.5% of that. So your share is going to be in the $140,000 range. And we assume that would be kicking in starting, I think, next year. I'm just trying to remember. In a couple of years. It's going to take them a couple of years to design and build a facility. And they are going out for state-subsidized loans, which is a good thing. There's a state revolving fund loan program. It's only a little over 2% interest rate, and you don't have to start making payments on that until a year after the project's complete. We also built in what we thought was a reasonable level of capital projects based on what the engineers had recommended in the past. So on top of that, there's also a new Vector truck that the district needs, so we assume that would be paid back with 10-year lease payments. So we try to factor everything in, not make any, be a little conservative, not make it too high. And what it came out with was, on slide 10, that the projections indicated the need for an ongoing series of rate increases. Either $30 per year if you kept the 32-hour work week, or if you went to the 40-hour work week, it would be about $35 per year annual rate increases. At the end of the 5-year period, with a 40-hour work week, it's about $20 more per year than it is with a 32-hour work week. And again, the key drivers of that ongoing cost inflation, both here in the district, you face ongoing costs just like everyone else, and the treatment plan as well. That's half your costs, it's out of your control, and their costs are probably going up in the 6% range is what they say. Could be worse, but we think that's a good estimate. And the transition to the 40-hour work week, that would increase your cost by about $150,000, including salaries and benefits on an annual basis. So the good news is, in spite of that, if you look at slide 11, it shows your projected rate increases. Yes, they would be going up, but they're still going to be staying below your 1990 rate, escalated by 3.5% cost inflation. And if you go to the next slide, slide 12, that shows a pretty comprehensive survey of regional sewer rates. East Palo Alto's in the lower half of that right now. And I can just tell you from working with a lot of other agencies out there, a number of other folks are expecting some pretty big rate increases in upcoming years. South Bayside System Authority, which serves Redwood City, West Bay Sanitary District, and San Carlos and Belmont, they're facing over $300 million of capital projects over 10 years. San Mateo's rates have been going up every year, and we're then Foster City. Hillsborough, they're already over $125 on a monthly basis, and they expect their rates are going to keep going up. So when they say 3% rate increase, it doesn't sound like much, but in dollar terms, it's higher than what some other agencies would call a 10% rate increase. Sunnyvale, I think they're facing the potential need for a brand new or a major overhaul of their wastewater treatment plant. So a lot of agencies, unfortunately, are getting hit throughout the Bay Area, and even I heard San Jose mention that they might need hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion, to overhaul their plant. I don't know if that's really going to come to pass, but I read an article about that. So we're recommending that you go ahead. We like to do a multi-year rate increase under Prop 218. It doesn't mean you have to raise the rates to that level. If you want to think about Prop 218 rates, think of them more as a rate cap, because you can't exceed the level in the Prop 218 notice without having to go back and go through the process again. But the three elements of Prop 218 are, again, you got to mail the notice out to all the property owners, and also we recommend to the ratepayers who are tenants to make sure everyone's informed. Then you hold a public hearing at least 45 days later, and if you have more than 50% of the parcels submitting written protests, you can't adopt the rate increases. But it's very difficult in an agency your size to get 50% of property owners to do anything. But typically, the only time I see these Prop 218 protests are little tiny districts that might have 150 customers. So again, this would be rate caps. There's different ways of doing the Prop 218. I just want to mention to you, some agencies list separate rates for each of the 5 years, saying we will not exceed this rate this year, that rate that year. But what I typically recommend agencies doing, and this is totally up to your discretion, you don't have to even decide this today, but is adopt the 5th-year maximum rate and show everyone what you anticipate the rates would be for the next 5 years. The only reason is because I say there's no crystal ball. If the treatment plant comes back in year 3 and says, oh, by the way, we need you to kick in an extra $300,000 a year